The room went quiet when he walked in. Keanu Reeves didn't speak when he entered the courtroom. He didn't need to. The quiet sound of his footsteps against the polished floor said everything. People turned in their seats. The reporters stopped, whispering. Even the guards paused. Something about the way he walked, calm but heavy, strong but gentle, made everyone feel something. Like maybe they were about to witness more than a legal case. Maybe they were about to see a man put his soul on display. The judge, an older man with sharp eyes and a tired face, looked up from his papers. He blinked twice, surprised. It wasn't every day a man like Keanu Reeves stood before him. The judge had seen celebrities come through. Most wore arrogance like perfume. Keanu wore silence, humility, and something else. Grief, maybe. It was hard to tell, but whatever it was deep. The courtroom doors shut behind him, a soft click. The sound echoed. Then the judge spoke, voice low and steady. "Mr. Reeves, you may step forward." Keanu nodded once. He didn't flinch. He walked to the front like a man who had already faced worse things than this, and survived. People didn't know the full story yet. They only knew the headlines. Keanu Reeves connected to fire that destroyed orphan shelter. They knew the rumors. Reeves donated millions to cover it up. They knew the photos. Reeves kneeling in ashes, face covered in soot, holding a burnt teddy bear. But they didn't know the truth. And Keanu wasn't here to defend himself. He was here to tell the truth. Finally, the story began 6 months ago, in a quiet part of the city. Keanu had visited a small shelter for children who had lost their parents. It wasn't his first time there. He had been supporting that place quietly for years. He never told the press. He never posted about it. Just showed up with books, gifts, food, hugs, time. Kids adored him. They called him Uncle Keanu. He never stayed long. Just enough to remind them someone still cared. On that particular day, he had brought old comics from his personal collection. One of the boys, Tommy, had been struggling to smile lately. He had nightmares every night. Wouldn't talk to anyone. But when Keanu handed him a faded Superman issue from 1982, Tommy's eyes lit up. For the first time in weeks, he whispered, "Thank you." Keanu smiled and gently tousled his hair. "Anytime, buddy." That was the last time the shelter stood whole. Just after midnight, the fire broke out. No one knew what caused it at first. The flames moved too fast. The building was old. The alarms didn't work properly. The city had promised repairs that never came. Keanu was already gone by then. He had flown out for a film shoot. But the call came at 2 a.m. He didn't sleep after that. Within hours, he canceled the film. Within a day, he was on a plane back. Within 2, he stood in the ruins, helping search through the ashes. Everyone who survived said the same thing. Keanu didn't act like a star. He acted like family. Stayed for hours, covered in smoke, comforting kids, helping staff, never once asking for attention. He offered money, of course, millions, but more than that. He offered himself. Still questions came. Why did the shelter catch fire right after his visit? Why had the city ignored requests for upgrades? And why was Keanu's name suddenly linked to a closed insurance claim from years ago? The courtroom was full that morning. Some were there to support him, some were waiting to see him fall, and some were just curious to watch a man who always stayed out of trouble suddenly pulled into it. The judge asked for silence. Keanu raised his hand. "Your Honor, if I may speak?" Even his voice was soft, not afraid, not proud, just is. "Not here to deny anything. I'm here to tell the whole truth, because those kids deserve that. The staff, the families, everyone who ever trusted me with their hearts. They deserve that." The judge looked at him. "You understand this is not a press conference?" Keanu nodded. "Yes, sir. This is my chance to tell what really happened." "What?" Judge gestured for him to begin. Keanu began with a name, Deborah Hale. She was the founder of the shelter. A tough woman with kind eyes and a louder laugh than most people could handle. She had started the place after losing her own child in a car accident. No kid should ever be alone, she always said. Keanu met her years ago during a charity gala. They connected instantly. Not romantically, just two hearts that had both known pain. Deborah was the reason Keanu kept visiting. It's the reason he donated quietly. She never wanted fame. Only safety for the children. But 2 months before the fire, Deborah called him crying. The shelter had received a shutdown notice, unpaid taxes, overdue fire code violations. The city was pulling support. Someone had forged her signature on loan, documents she never signed. "I think they're trying to take the building," she had whispered. "Someone wants the land." Keanu had promised her, "I'll fix it." In court, Keanu's voice trembled slightly. "I thought money could fix it. I offered to pay the debts, the taxes, everything. But it was deeper than that. Someone didn't just want the shelter closed. They wanted it gone. And I didn't see it in time." He paused, looked down, took a breath. Deborah died in that fire, along with 2 kids. Gasps filled the room. Some already knew, others didn't. "And I can't bring them back, but I can bring the truth." At this point in the trial, the judge leaned forward slightly. For the first time, his eyes weren't just stern, they were searching, almost human. "Mr. Reeves," he said, "are you claiming this fire was intentional?" Keanu looked up. "Yes. And I believe someone in the city office knew about it." Courtroom burst into noise. Reporters scrambled to type. The judge pounded his gavel. "Order. We will have order." But the silence that followed wasn't normal. It was thick. Like everyone had realized, this case wasn't about a celebrity anymore. It was about something darker. Outside the courthouse, protesters began to gather. Some held signs with Keanu's face. Others held pictures of the children lost. Simply held candles inside. The judge ordered a short break. Keanu stepped out into the hallway. A little boy, one of the shelter kids who survived, ran up to him and hugged him tightly. "Uncle Keanu," the boy whispered. "Don't let them lie about her." Keanu bent down, held him close, and whispered back, "I won't. I promise." The doors reopened. The air in the courtroom changed. It wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a battle for truth, and Keanu Reeves' quiet, humble, kind Keanu was about to fight with everything he had. Secrets they tried to bury. The courtroom felt colder when Keanu walked back in. It wasn't the air. It was the tension, the energy, the quiet way people shifted in their seats. Eyes followed him like shadows. No one whispered this time. Dared. He took his place, his face calm but serious. Behind him, the judge returned and sat down slowly. He adjusted his robe and looked over the room. "Court will now hear the evidence brought forward," he said, voice firm. "Mr. Reeves, you may proceed." Keanu stood up again. "Your Honor, before I show anything, I need to say something," he began, his voice steady. "This isn't just about a fire. It's about a promise I made. To protect a place, and to protect the woman who built it. I failed her, but I won't fail her memory." The judge gave a slow nod. "Go on." Keanu walked to the center of the room and held up a small folder. It looked plain, thin, but what was inside would change everything. A few weeks after the fire, Keanu had hired a private investigator. He hadn't told anyone. Not his team, not the lawyers, not even the press. He just needed answers. Real ones. And fast. What they found was worse than he expected. A company named West Point Ventures had tried buying the shelter building 3 times in the past year. They had sent fake inspectors. They filed false reports about electrical failures. And worst of all, someone inside the city office had helped them cover it up. That someone? A fire inspector named Rick Mason. Keanu handed the judge a printed email. The courtroom leaned forward. The message was from Rick Mason to a man named Elliot Stone, the CEO of West Point Ventures. It read, "The next inspection will fail. Building's too old to pass anyway. If you want it cleared, now's your chance. Just make sure it looks like an accident." Gasps broke the silence. The judge stared at the paper for a long moment. He looked up slowly, eyes hard. "Is this real, Mr. Reeves?" "Yes, Your Honor," Keanu said. "We traced the IP. The email was deleted, but not before it was backed up to a city's server. The prosecutor stood up quickly. Objection. This is outside the scope of today's hearing. But the judge raised a hand. Overruled. If this evidence connects to the fire, we will hear it, Keanu continued. The inspection 2 weeks before the fire was fake. Rick Mason never even entered the shelter. But he filed a report saying the place was a death trap. They used that to stop donations, to scare people away, to weaken the place until it was ready to fall. A woman in the back row stood up. Her name was Sarah Klein. She used to volunteer at the shelter. I was there that day, she shouted. The inspector never came inside. A guard tried to calm her, but the judge signaled to let her speak. They lied to us, Sarah said. We called the city after the inspection, begged them to help. They told us everything was fine. Judge nodded slowly. Thank you, Miss Klein. Please sit. The courtroom was shifting. What began as a case against Keanu was turning into something far more dangerous for the people in power. Keanu spoke again. The night of the fire, Deborah Hale called me. She sounded scared. She said she saw someone outside the shelter. Someone in a suit, just watching? He paused, eyes glassy but unbroken. She said she felt something was coming. His voice lowered. I should have told someone then. But I didn't want to accuse anyone without proof. I waited. And now she's gone. The judge turned to the prosecutor. Are you aware of this evidence? He asked. The man looked uncomfortable. We had suspicions, Your Honor, but no. Direct link to Mr. Reeves. Keanu stepped forward. That's because there's no link to me. I didn't burn that shelter. I tried to save it. He looked across the room, voice softer now, but I understand why people questioned me. I was there hours before the fire. I donated money. I stayed close. And when something looks bad enough, people believe the worst. A woman in the crowd wiped a tear. But the truth matters, Keanu said. Even when it's late. The judge sat back. He looked at the folder again, the photos, the emails, the names, then he spoke. Voice firm. This court is suspending all charges against Mr. Reeves, pending an immediate investigation. Into City Inspector Rick Mason and West Point Ventures, murmurs exploded across the room. Reporters rushed out. But Keanu didn't smile. He just closed his eyes for a second, like he was finally breathing after holding it in for too long. Outside, the sky had turned gray. A quiet rain began to fall. Keanu walked slowly down the steps. Cameras flashed. Questions flew. But he didn't stop. He reached a black car waiting nearby. The driver opened the door before getting in. Keanu turned to the crowd. I'm not done, he said. And then he was gone. Later that evening, in a dark office downtown, a man sat in silence. His name was Elliot Stone. His hands trembled as he replayed the court footage on a laptop screen. He picked up his phone and made a call. We have a problem, he whispered. Keanu knows. The walls started to crack next morning. The sun rose slowly over the city. But it didn't bring peace. It brought headlines. Keanu Reeves cleared. Corruption probe begins into shelter. Fire emails reveal possible. Cover-up involving top reel. Estate firm from movie star to truth seeker. Keanu Reeves takes on City Halaveri major news station had something to say. Some praised him. Some still questioned him. But everyone agreed on one thing. Something dark had been hiding in the city. And Keanu had just ripped the curtain down. In a quiet corner of Los Angeles, Keanu sat alone on a bench near a quiet park. His phone buzzed nonstop. He ignored it. His mind wasn't on the headlines. It was on Tommy, the boy from the shelter, on Deborah Hale, the woman who had built that place with her bare hands. He thought of her laugh. Her way of calling him movie man even when she was upset. He thought of how she always wore the same gold necklace, a gift from her late husband, and how it was found melted in the ruins. His fists tightened. He wasn't finished. That day he met with Maya, the private investigator he had hired. They sat in a small coffee shop with tinted windows and whispered voices. Maya opened a black folder and laid it between them. They're starting to panic, she said quietly. Rick Mason tried to leave the country last night. Tess stopped him. He's under questioning now. Keanu nodded slowly. And Elliot Stone? Maya leaned in closer. He's hiring lawyers, expensive ones. And he just erased 3 years of business emails. But we pulled the backups. She slid over a photo. Keanu stared at it. It showed Elliot Stone sitting in a restaurant, laughing next to someone unexpected. City Councilman Bradley Myers. He's the link, Maya whispered. Stone offered him campaign donations in exchange for zoning approvals, including the land under the shelter. Keanu's voice was low. Deborah told me she once denied a deal from Myers years ago. Said he tried to pressure her to sell. Maya nodded. I believe he never let it go. Eh? Keanu leaned back, eyes sharp now. Then we bring that proof to court. But it wasn't that easy. The city was changing its tone. They offered Keanu a deal, a quiet resolution, no more court appearances, no more public fights. Just a press statement clearing his name and moving on. Keanu read the offer carefully. He folded it, placed it on the table. No deal. Next hearing was scheduled for Friday. Outside the courthouse, dozens of supporters gathered. Candles, drawings, even handmade signs, with the kids' names who had once lived in the shelter. People weren't just angry anymore. They were awake. Inside, Keanu stood at the front again. This time he had a new folder. Your Honor, he began, I have new evidence to submit. The judge nodded. Please proceed. Keanu turned to the crowd first. This isn't just about me, or even Deborah Hale. This is about a pattern. People in power, doing quiet harm, hiding behind paperwork and smiles. I have here a series of wire transfers. Sent from West Point Ventures to a private account linked to Councilman Bradley Myers. The courtroom went silent. These transfers began shortly after the shelter refused to sell. Continued, voice steady. And on the day after the fire, the account received its final payment. The judge raised his eyebrows. Mr. Reeves, you're suggesting the fire was paid for? Keanu didn't blink. I'm saying it wasn't an accident. The judge signaled to the clerk. This court will call for a criminal investigation into Mr. Myers and West Point Ventures. From the back of the courtroom, someone stormed out. Elliot Stone. He pushed past reporters, his face pale. The moment was caught on camera within hours. Social media exploded, and within 24 hours, Councilman Bradley Myers resigned. Later that night, Keanu sat with Maya in a small office. The lights were dim. Papers covered the table. Maya looked exhausted. We got what we came for, she said. Your name is clear. The shelter is going to be rebuilt. The truth's out. Keanu stared at a photo of Deborah on the wall. No, he said quietly. Not yet. Maya frowned. What do you mean? Keanu stood, his voice soft but firm. Someone lit that match. The news shifted again. Elliot Stone, under pressure, denies ordering the fire-rising questions. Who actually started it? The money trail had opened doors. There was still no proof about the actual arson. No camera footage, no witnesses. No fingerprints. Just smoke, ashes, and pain. And Keanu couldn't sleep, knowing the person who lit the fire might still be out. There he began going over old records. Security tapes. City logs. Even garbage collection reports. One detail stood out. The shelter's security camera system had been disabled 2 days before the fire. The reason? Scheduled software update by a company contracted by the city. But Keanu remembered something Deborah had said on the phone before she died. They said the cameras were fixed, but they blink red every hour. I don't trust it. Keanu traced the company. Its name was SafePoint Solutions. He found the name of the technician who visited the shelter. His name, Alex Mason, Rick Mason's younger brother. Keanu took the discovery to Maya. She stared at the file in disbelief. They used his brother to disable the cameras, she said. Then Rick covered the inspection, and Elliot cleaned it up with lawyers. Keanu's jaw tightened. Call the judge. We're not done yet. Ow. As the next court date approached, pressure rose. Cameras waited outside Keanu's house. Helicopters flew over. Online posts praised him as a hero. Others accused him of chasing fame, but Keanu ignored it all. This wasn't about image. This was about truth. And finally, The pieces were falling into place. On the day of the next hearing, storm rolled in. Gray clouds swirled above the courthouse. Rain poured down, but the crowd still came. Umbrellas, raincoats, soaked signs, no one left inside. Keanu stood once more, Your Honor, he said softly. I now present final proof. How the fire started, told the court about. Safe point, about Alex Mason, about the disabled cameras. About the blinking red lights, the judge listened quietly. Then Keanu said, the words that made everyone sit up, and Alex Mason has agreed to testify. Doors opened. A young man in a hoodie walked in, nervous, scared. Alex Mason. The courtroom was frozen. Alex walked to the front. Trembling, he looked at the judge. I didn't know what they were planning, he said, voice shaky. My brother said it was just a job. Told me to shut down the system. Said the shelter didn't need surveillance anymore. I didn't know they were going to burn it. He looked at Keanu. I'm sorry, he whispered. Keanu just nodded, thank you, he said. The storm outside grew louder, but inside, truth had landed like thunder. The judge slammed his gavel down. This court is issuing warrants for the arrest of Rick Mason, Elliot Stone, and anyone else involved in this conspiracy. We will not rest until every person responsible is held accountable. People in the courtroom stood and clapped. Some cried. But Keanu just closed his eyes. Finally, the truth had a voice. When the truth became danger-roused, rain didn't stop that night. It poured like the sky had been waiting to cry. Keanu sat by the window of a small apartment. Lights off, watching the street below. He had moved out of his home a week ago. Too many cameras, too many people trying to turn his pain into a headline. Now he lived quiet, hidden. Surrounded by boxes of papers and late-night coffee, Maya was asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. She had stayed late again, helping him piece together the final part of the puzzle. Keanu couldn't rest. Not yet. His phone buzzed. A message from a number he didn't know. You should stop digging. People like you don't survive this long. Stared at it for a moment. No reply. He deleted it. But he didn't forget it. It meant they were scared, and that meant he was close. The next morning, Alex Mason was taken into protective custody. His testimony had shaken the case, but it also painted a target on his back. Keanu visited him at a safe house. Alex looked pale, exhausted, ashamed. They said they'd pay my student loans, he whispered. That's why I did it. I didn't. No, they'd hurt anyone. Keanu sat across from him and nodded slowly. Sometimes people don't know what they're part of until it's too late. Do you hate me? Alex asked. Keanu looked him in the eyes. No, I hate what they made you a part of. The city exploded with news, arrests made in shelter, fire case councilmen and businessmen. Under investigation, actor Keanu Reeves praised for uncovering truth. Alex Mason testifies. I was used by my own brother, but not everyone was celebrating. Behind closed doors, people were panicking. Elliot Stone had disappeared. He never showed up to court. His house was empty. His office abandoned. He had left behind nothing but shredded files and a missing passport. Maya called Keanu immediately. He's running. And if he disappears, this whole case might fall apart. We need to find him, Keanu agreed. Follow the money. With help from a few trusted friends, Maya traced Stone's financial movements. He had wired money to a private account in Singapore, bought a one-way flight under a fake name. But something else stood out. 2 days before he vanished, he made a payment to someone local. Someone named Victor Kane, a name Maya didn't recognize, but Keanu did. He used to work security on one of my movie sets, Keanu said, his voice tense. Quiet guy. Always watching. But there were rumors he used to do dirty jobs before Hollywood hired him. Maya looked him up. Victor Kane had no recent address, no family listed, no current employment, but 3 months ago. He'd rented a warehouse on the edge of the city. We're going there, Keanu said. Maya frowned. Are you sure this isn't a movie? Keanu looked at her gently. No, but real life needs heroes too. That night they drove in silence. The warehouse stood cold and silent under the pale moonlight. They parked far away and walked the rest of the way. Keanu's heartbeat was steady, but heavy. He didn't know what they'd find, but he had to know. Maya unlocked the side gate with a tool. They slipped in quietly inside. It smelled like oil and old secrets. They searched room by room until they found the one with a table, a single light bulb, and boxes of documents. Keanu opened. One: plans, maps, reports on the shelter. Even photos of the kids who lived there. They were being watched for months. But the worst part, a blueprint for a different building. 2 blocks away, they wanted to do it again, Maya whispered. Keanu stared in horror. This wasn't just about land. It was a system. They were still processing it when a sound echoed. A door slammed footsteps. They weren't alone. Maya pulled out her phone. Keanu motioned for her to hide behind a crate. The footsteps got closer, then a voice. Deep, slow. I warned you, Reeves. Victor Kane stepped into the light. He held a phone in one hand, a gun in the other. You had to be the hero. But heroes die young. Keanu stood still, not afraid, just focused. You worked for Stone, he said. Victor laughed. I worked. For whoever paid. Keanu stepped slightly forward. What's the plan now? Burn another place? Hurt more kids? Victor's face tightened. You don't get it. The city's broken. We just used the cracks. Keanu didn't flinch. You forgot. Something, he said quietly. I'm not the only one watching you now. He glanced toward Maya, hidden, phone recording everything. She stepped out and pressed send. The video was already in the cloud. It's already going viral. Victor's eyes widened. In that second, lights flashed outside. Sirens, police surrounded the warehouse. Victor turned to run, but it was too late. They arrested him before he reached the back door. Keanu and Maya stepped out into the cool night air. Officers nodded at him with respect. A detective approached. We've been chasing Kane for years. Your evidence just broke it open. Keanu looked at the stars. Then let's make sure this never happens again. The news broke the next day. Keanu Reeves traps key suspect in corruption fire case, caught on camera. Warehouse filled with evidence of multiple attacks. City halls shaken as more names are exposed. Keanu didn't speak to the press. He spent the evening at the graveyard, visiting Deborah Hale's resting place. He knelt quietly and placed a single rose. You were right, he whispered. They wanted more than just your shelter, but it ends now. I promise. As he stood, he noticed something at the edge of the grave. A small comic book, faded, torn, the same one he gave Tommy. Someone had left it for her. Keanu smiled softly, tears in his eyes. There was still good in the world, even in the ashes. Justice doesn't come easy. Morning sky looked softer now. The rain had passed, but its memory lingered in puddles across the city. Keanu sat by a window in Maya's office, quietly sipping a cup of black coffee. The city outside was waking up. Cars moved. People walked. Life went on. But for Keanu, something was still unfinished. They had caught Victor Kane. They had exposed Bradley Myers. They had forced Elliot Stone into hiding. The world was finally seeing what had really happened to the shelter. But justice, real justice, hadn't arrived yet. Deborah Hale was still gone. 2 children were still dead, and the system that allowed it all was still standing, bruised, yes, but not broken. Maya came in holding her laptop. She looked both excited and concerned. The video went everywhere, she said. Over 20 million views in less than a day. Keanu nodded slowly. Good. Now, they can't lie anymore. Maya hesitated. But there's something else, she said. Opening a new folder, she turned the screen toward him. It was a report, a sealed court document. Keanu leaned in and began to read. The words hit him hard. 2 more shelters were targeted in the last year. One in New Mexico, one in Ohio. Both burned down. Both had pending offers from West Point Ventures. Both had ties to Bradley Myers' campaign donors. His hand shook. It wasn't just here, he whispered. This was nationwide. That day, Keanu met with a federal investigator, A woman named Agent Claire Ramirez. She had sharp eyes and spoke like someone who had seen too much. "You cracked open something bigger than you know," she told him. "We've been watching Stone and his connections for over 2 years, but we couldn't prove anything until now." Keanu sat quietly. "How far does it go?" he asked. Ramirez sighed. "Farther than we hoped. Real estate fraud, arson, political bribery, even child displacement scams." Keanu's eyes narrowed. "They weren't just after land," he said. "They were moving kids around, breaking up homes." Ramirez nodded. "And getting rich off it." Keanu stood up, pacing. "What happens now?" She looked at him calmly. "We go after all of them, but we'll need your help, your name, your voice, your proof." Keanu didn't hesitate. "I'll do whatever it takes." The next weeks moved fast. Keanu testified before a federal grand jury. He met with families from the other shelters. He stood beside Alex Mason as he gave his final testimony in court. He even visited Tommy, the quiet boy who once smiled at a comic book and called him Uncle Keanu. They sat in a garden behind Tommy's new home. The boy looked stronger now, healthier. "They told me you helped stop the bad guys," Tommy said softly. Keanu smiled. "I didn't do it alone." Tommy looked down at the grass. "I still have nightmares," he whispered. Keanu gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "So do I," he said. "But we're still here. And we're still fighting." Soon after, the judge issued a full criminal trial against Elliot Stone in absentia. Rick Mason was convicted of conspiracy and obstruction. Bradley Myers faced federal charges and lost all political protections. Victor Kane made a deal reduced time in exchange for a full confession. His words were recorded on video and played in court. "We targeted places no one cared about. We thought no one would notice. Well, but then Reeves showed up, and everything changed." But as the walls of corruption began to fall, Keanu's personal life became harder. His privacy vanished. Strangers stopped him on the street. Cameras followed him everywhere. Offers poured in: movie roles, interviews, speaking tours. He turned them all down. He didn't want to become a symbol. He just wanted to finish what he started. One evening, Maya knocked on his door. "You should come see this," she said. They drove to the old shelter site. Construction had begun. Workers hammered. New beams, fresh walls were rising. The new signs stood on the ground, waiting to be lifted. The Deborah Hale Center. A home for every child. Keanu stood there, staring silent. A little girl ran up with a crayon drawing and gave it to him. It showed him standing next to a big heart with tiny stick figure kids all around. "Thank you," she said. He knelt down and smiled. "Thank you for not giving up." But even as healing began, the shadows weren't finished. Maya received a warning from one of her contacts. Elliot Stone had been spotted, not overseas, but in Los Angeles, hiding under a new name, using fake passports. Waiting. He's not done, Maya said. He still has money. Connections. He could try again. Keanu's face went still. Then we don't wait. They worked with Agent Ramirez to set a trap. They leaked a fake document about new evidence. They watched the account where the leak was posted, and sure enough, someone accessed it. From a private office in downtown Los Angeles, Ramirez gave the green light. "We move at dawn." That night, Keanu couldn't sleep. He stood on the balcony. Watching the city lights, he thought of everything. The fire, the kids, the courtroom, the threats, the tears. He thought of Deborah's laugh, and he whispered to the night sky, "Tomorrow, we end this." The next morning, federal agents raided the building. Inside, they found Elliot Stone, thin, angry, desperate. He tried to run, but Keanu was already waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Stone stopped. Breathless, trapped, he looked at Keanu. "You ruined everything," he hissed. Keanu single quotes his voice. "No, I stopped you from ruining more." Stone was arrested. The last piece had fallen. Later that day, Keanu stood in front of the rebuilt shelter. Reporters waited for a statement. He took a deep breath. "This isn't about me," he said. This is about truth. It's about protecting the people no one wants to protect. It's about listening when it's easier to stay silent. He looked at the crowd. We lost good people. We lost trust. But we didn't lose hope. And now we rebuild. Not just walls, but hearts and justice. The people clapped. Some cried. Some just stood in quiet respect. And in that moment, Keanu didn't feel like a movie star. He felt like a man who had finally kept a promise. The fire didn't win. Months had passed since Elliot Stone's arrest. The courtroom was quiet, again, just like it had been the day Keanu first stood before the judge. But everything had changed since then. Truths had surfaced. The guilty had been exposed. The city was waking up. And now, the final chapter was about to be written. Keanu sat at the front bench, hands folded, eyes focused. This was the sentencing. The judge entered. The room stood. Silence returned. Court is now in session, the clerk announced. Stone sat beside his lawyers. His face had lost its arrogance. His suit no longer made him powerful. And Keanu, he didn't look angry, didn't look proud. He just looked ready. The judge looked over the papers and spoke. Elliot Stone, you have been found guilty of conspiracy to commit arson, fraud, and the deliberate endangerment of minors. The court recognizes your actions caused the deaths of 2 innocent children and the loss of a vital shelter built to protect the most vulnerable. Your crimes were calculated, cruel, and hidden behind walls of money and influence. The room held its breath. You are hereby sentenced to 35 years. In federal prison without parole. Gasps filled the courtroom. Stone didn't speak. He only lowered his head. The gavel fell. Justice was done. Outside, reporters swarmed. Crowds clapped. Some cried Keanu stepped out but didn't speak to cameras. Instead, he walked across the street to a small gathering. It was the staff from the original shelter, the volunteers, the kids now in new homes, and Tommy, standing tall beside his new adoptive parents. Holding a bouquet of white flowers, Keanu knelt and smiled. Those for her? He asked. Tommy nodded. For Miss Deborah. She always liked flowers. Together, they walked to the new memorial in front of the shelter. Stone statue of an open book stood there, graved with Deborah Hale's name and the names of the 2 children lost. Keanu placed his hand on the stone. You did it? Tommy whispered. Keanu single quotes eyes softened. No, kiddo, we did. That evening, Keanu sat on the rooftop of the rebuilt shelter. The city lights flickered below. Laughter rose from inside the building. Kids playing board games, reading books, eating warm meals. He closed his eyes, breathing in the peace he hadn't felt in so long. Maya joined him, 2 cups of tea in hand. This place feels different, she said. Keanu nodded. It feels safe. They sat in silence for a while. Then Maya asked quietly, What now? Go back to acting? Keanu thought for a moment. Maybe. Or maybe I help build more shelters. Maya smiled. You really mean that? Keanu looked at the stars. It's the only thing that makes sense now. Weeks later, headlines appeared again. Keanu Reeves launches foundation to protect at-risk children, building 5 new shelters in honor of Deborah. Halifrome actor to advocate. How Reeves turned pain into purpose but Keanu didn't care about the headlines anymore. He cared about what happened in the quiet moments, the laughter echoing through safe halls, the little hands holding new books, the smiles on faces that once knew only fear. He often visited the new shelter, always unannounced. Sometimes to play chess with the kids, sometimes to fix a broken light or carry boxes of supplies. He never wanted thanks, only to be useful, and the kids. They still called him Uncle Keanu. One afternoon, Tommy walked into his office carrying a notebook. He sat down. Serious, I want to be like you, he said. Keanu chuckled. Like me? Yeah, not an actor. Someone who listens when others look. Away. Keanu felt a lump in his throat. You already are, Tommy. Life slowly moved forward, but the fire never left Keanu's heart. It reminded him of what could be lost, but also what could be built again. He knew pain, he knew injustice, but he also knew something stronger, hope. And that was the lesson he carried into every shelter he helped build. Every hand he held, every voice he encouraged. Not all heroes wear costumes. Some walk through flames and come out kinder. Years later, a young journalist interviewed Keanu for a documentary. "Why did you keep going?" she asked, "even when things got dangerous?" Keanu paused. He looked at the camera, eyes calm. "Because silence is easy," he said softly. "But standing up even when you're scared, that's where change begins." "Would you do it all again?" she asked. He nodded without hesitation. Every second, as the credits rolled on the documentary, the final image faded in. A black and white photo of Keanu kneeling in front of the new shelter, surrounded by smiling children. Below it, simple words were written. He stood before the judge. But the world heard his heart.